Before you go, we'd love to know, where in the world are you watching this story from? Drop your city or country in the comments below and let's see how far this journey has reached. If this story stirred your heart or made you think, hit that like button and share your thoughts. We read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss tomorrow's emotional tale. It might just be the one that speaks directly to your soul. Until then, thank you for being part of this growing family of story lovers. She wasn't supposed to break the rules. But she did, because his life depended on it. At just 29, Dr. Claire Evans was known for her precision, her discipline, and her unshakable loyalty to the code of medicine. She followed protocols, respected procedures, and rarely let emotion cloud her judgment. But when the doors of the emergency room burst open that night, everything changed. Matthew Rivers, 35, the enigmatic CEO of Titan Core Technologies, had collapsed mid-conference. His team rushed him in with frantic urgency, his body drenched in sweat, heart erratic, skin burning at 103 degrees. Every monitor blared red. Blood pressure was crashing, pulse fading, oxygen levels plummeting. Seconds mattered. Claire knew the rules. Wait for the approval form, follow chain of command. But with each passing moment, Matthew's organs edged closer to irreversible failure. The paperwork hadn't arrived. The chief of surgery hadn't given the green light. But Claire didn't hesitate. Her hands moved before her mind could catch. Up. No repinephrine, 30 micrograms per minute, she ordered sharply. Atropine, 0.5 milligrams. Prepare for CPR. Now. The nurses paused, wide-eyed. No one questioned her, but they all knew what it meant. If she was wrong, if this didn't work, she'd be suspended. Maybe worse. Still, she pressed on, her voice unwavering, her pulse steady, even as Matthew's wasn't. She performed chest compressions, adjusted the IV drip, and counted each beat in her head like a metronome of hope. And then, there it was, a flicker, the faintest blip on the heart. Monitor one beat, then another, the rhythm returning like a wave breaking against a once dead shore. He was stabilizing, blood pressure climbing, oxygen levels leveling. He was alive. Everyone exhaled. Some clapped. One nurse wiped her eyes, but Claire didn't. Celebrate. She just looked down at Matthew's pale face and whispered, "You're not leaving on my watch." Moments later, the chief stormed in. "Dr. Evans, what the hell did you do?" Claire turned slowly, met his eyes, and said with quiet conviction, "I saved a life." She didn't offer excuses. She didn't need to. The monitors spoke for her. Outside the room, Matthew's parents arrived, frantic, exhausted, and fearing the worst. But when they saw their son breathing, color returning to his face, they collapsed in each other's arms in relief. In that moment, Claire wasn't a doctor. She was a miracle worker. But deep down, it wasn't just about the patient. It was about Matthew, the man she once knew, the one she once lost. She didn't care if she got fired. She just wanted him to live. She thought saving his life would be the end of it. But it was only the beginning. 2 days after the dramatic scene in the ER, Dr. Claire Evans stood before the hospital's disciplinary board. The room was cold, sterile in more ways than one. 3 department heads, 1 HR representative, a thick file labeled with her name. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. She didn't regret what she'd done. She'd save Matthew again in a heartbeat. But the consequences were closing in, and she was ready to take them, until the boardroom. Door opened. Everyone turned. There he was, Matthew Rivers, CEO, patient, survivor, and the man who once walked away from her without a word. He entered with quiet authority, dressed in a navy suit, his presence instantly shifting the energy in the room. "Good afternoon," he began, voice steady but raw. "Before you pass, judgment on Dr. Evans, I'd like to speak." Claire's eyes widened. They hadn't spoken since that night. She didn't even know he was conscious, let alone strong enough to defend her. Matthew walked to the head of the room and turned to face the panel. "She didn't just save a life, she saved mine. Not because I'm important or rich or powerful, but because she still believes in what medicine is supposed to be. Human, immediate, uncompromising when it comes to doing what's right." There was silence. He turned to Claire. Their eyes locked, and for a second, the hospital walls disappeared. It was just them, two people with too much history, standing on the edge of something unknown. She shouldn't be punished, Matthew continued. She should be promoted. The board whispered. Notes were passed, questions asked. But by the end of the meeting, Claire walked out not with a suspension, but with a formal commendation for decisive action under critical conditions. Still reeling, Claire found herself outside on the rooftop garden, trying to catch her breath. That's when she heard his footsteps again. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly without turning. Matthew stood beside her, hands in his pockets. "Actually, I did. I owed you. For more than just the defibrillator." She looked up at him. "You left." "I know. You disappeared, Matt. 3 years. No goodbye, no explanation." He took a deep breath. "I was broken, Claire. I didn't think I deserved you then. And honestly, I'm not sure I do now. But you risked everything for me. Again." Claire turned to face him, eyes guarded but vulnerable. "What do you want from me?" He smiled, tired but genuine. "A chance to explain, to fix what I broke, and maybe to thank you properly." She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. But she didn't walk away either. She gave him a second chance. But fate had its own plans. It had only been 3 weeks since Claire saved Matthew's life, 3 weeks since he stood up for her in front of the hospital board. And in those 3 weeks, something shifted between them. It wasn't loud or fast. It was subtle, almost like learning to breathe again after nearly drowning. They began having lunch in the hospital garden, late-night coffee after shifts, exchanging stories like old friends who were cautiously rediscovering one another. And even though Claire tried to resist, her heart was already betraying her, remembering the way he used to hold her hand, the warmth of his laugh, the way he whispered her name when no one was listening. But just as their bond began to heal, a storm rolled in, quiet, hidden, and cruel. It was late on a Friday night when Claire was called into the ER, again. Only this time, it wasn't Matthew lying unconscious on the gurney. It was Alex Rivers, his younger brother, bleeding and barely breathing, with a bullet wound to the abdomen. "What happened?" she asked, pulling on gloves. The paramedic replied, "Drive-by shooting. Random, maybe. Maybe not." Claire's hands trembled as she worked, her mind racing. Matthew hadn't mentioned his brother was back in town. The last time Alex appeared in the picture, he was a reckless gambler, tangled in bad debts and worse people. Hours passed. The surgery was intense, critical, but Alex pulled through. Barely. And when Claire emerged from the OR, her scrubs soaked and face pale, she saw Matthew in the hallway, eyes wild with rage. "They tried to kill him," he growled, "and it wasn't random. It was a warning. For me." Claire's stomach sank. "Matthew, what did you do?" He looked at her, broken. "I didn't do anything. But someone thinks I'm vulnerable because of what happened. Because I nearly died. They think I'm not paying attention." Claire stepped forward. "Who are they?" "I wish I knew." The days that followed were chaos. Hospital security doubled. Matthew's business partners grew quiet. Board meetings were postponed. And through it all, he refused to let Claire out of his sight. "You're in danger just by being near me," he said one night. "I'm a trauma doctor," she answered, brushing his cheek. "Danger comes with the territory." But she saw it in his eyes, how fear had crept in, not for himself, but for her. For the woman who had once saved his life, and was now entangled in the crossfire of his. And then, just like before, he disappeared. No note, no call, nothing but a voicemail on her phone. "I'm doing this to protect you. Please don't look for me." Claire stood in the silence of her apartment, heart pounding. hands clenched at her sides. She had risked everything for him once. Would she risk it all again to find him? She tried to move on, until his enemies found her first. Claire hadn't heard from Matthew in over a month. His voicemail kept replaying in her head. Those final words, broken and raw. "I'm doing this to protect you." But how was disappearing protecting anyone? Especially when the silence became more dangerous than the threats. She threw herself back into work. Triple shifts, volunteering for disaster response teams, anything to silence the growing ache in her chest. Her friends told her to forget him, that he chose to vanish. But Claire knew better. Matthew Rivers wasn't the kind of man to run. Not unless he believed it was the only way to shield her from something darker. And then one night, it happened. She was walking home after a late ER shift. Rain falling in sheets, headlights blurring across the street. She felt it before she saw it. Someone following her. Quiet footsteps. A presence too close for comfort. She quickened her pace, heart pounding, every instinct on high alert. "Claire Williams?" A man called out. She turned. Just as he lunged, a black SUV skidded across the curb, door flying open. Before she could scream, someone grabbed her, pulled her inside. Tires screeched. She braced for violence. But the voice that shouted her name made her breath catch. "Claire, it's me! It's me! Matthew!" She blinked in disbelief, wet hair clinging to her face, breath ragged. "What the hell is going on?" "They found you," he said, gripping the steering wheel, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. "I told you not to look for me." "I didn't," she snapped. "You vanished. You left me with no choice." Matthew ran a hand through his soaked hair. "They were using Alex to get to me. That shooting, it wasn't a warning. It was bait." Claire's voice trembled. "Bait for what?" "To make me come back out, so they could take me out. They think I know too much, and now they think you do too." She stared at him, fury and fear blending in her chest. "So what? Now? Are you going to disappear again and leave me to die next time?" "No," he said, his jaw tightening. "Not again." Suddenly a deafening bang. The SUV jolted. Tires burst. They veered off the road, crashing into a dark alley behind an abandoned building. Both doors flew open. Gunshots rang out. Matthew shoved her down behind a dumpster. "Stay!" "Low," he growled, pulling a pistol from his waistband. "No matter what happens, do not come out." She tried to speak, but her voice failed. All she could do was watch him run into the night, gun drawn, vanishing once more into the chaos. She thought she'd lost him once before, but this time, she feared it might be forever. They were running out of time, until a sacrifice changed everything. Claire could barely breathe as gunshots echoed in the alleyway. Her heart pounded in her ears, drowning out every thought except one. Don't lose him again. She pressed herself against the cold dumpster, rain soaking through her scrubs, eyes locked on the shadows where Matthew had disappeared. Every second felt like an hour. Every distant gunshot, a dagger to her chest. Then, silence. Too quiet. "Matthew," she whispered, crawling out, hands trembling. "Matthew!" She found him slumped behind a crate, clutching his side, blood seeping through his fingers. "Claire," he rasped. "You weren't supposed to follow me." She dropped beside him, already pulling off her sweater, pressing it hard against the wound. "Don't you dare!" she snapped through clenched teeth. "You don't get to vanish this time." He chuckled weakly. "You're still stubborn." "And you're still bleeding!" She snapped back, her voice cracking. Sirens wailed in the distance. Backup was coming. Finally. But would it be fast enough? Matthew caught her wrist. "Claire, listen to me," he gasped. "In my safe at the apartment, code 5109, there's a flash drive. Names, dates, everything. It's why they've been chasing me." She stared at him, stunned. "You were gathering evidence?" "For over a year," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "The corporation's laundering through defense contracts. I couldn't walk away once I knew." Tears mixed with rain on her face. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to protect you, he whispered. I thought keeping you in the dark would keep you safe. Claire shook her head. Then let me protect you now. You stay with me, do you hear me? You don't get to die on me. When the medics arrived, she rode with him, gripping his hand all the way to the hospital. The flash drive in her pocket felt heavier than gold. Days passed. Matthew survived the surgery. The news exploded. Executives arrested. Whistleblower praised. But Claire? She kept quiet. She didn't need headlines. She just needed him to wake up. And when he finally opened his eyes, weak but smiling, he whispered, "You didn't run." Claire smiled back, brushing his hair off his forehead. Never again. In the weeks that followed, their lives slowly pieced back together. No more hiding, no more running, just the two of them, and a future built on trust, truth, and love. Earned the hard way. She saved his life once, but in truth, he'd saved hers long before that, with the kind of love that risks everything. If this story touched your heart like it did ours, we'd love to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We're always amazed at how far these stories travel and how many hearts they reach. More than just a love story, Claire and Matthew's journey is about courage, sacrifice, and learning to trust again, even when the world seems to be falling apart. Have you ever risked everything for someone you love? Or perhaps, have you ever been the one saved by love at your lowest point? Share your thoughts, your experiences, or simply how this episode made you feel. Your voice matters here. We read every comment, and your words help us grow a global community built on emotion, healing, and hope. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. A brand new story is waiting for you tomorrow, and it just might move you even more than today's. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeling with us. Let's keep this circle of connection going, one story at a time.